Hi, this is Carla with Race to Walk, and this is just my little update that I'm doing in the ongoing saga of the petty and basic criminals that have been hacking and cyberstalking me and sabotaging pretty much everything that they can get their hands on. So, I have been, if you go to my website at racetowalk.org, I do have the playlist of what's been going on front and center on my site right now, and also three of the articles that seem to have specifically been targeted. So, what I'm doing is I'm streaming first live to Twitch because it seems like there's less interference streaming to Twitch than to some of the other platforms. For example, when I stream to YouTube, it's just like instantly, there's a lot of interference with the live stream. And then I restream it to my other platforms. So I am wearing my glasses so you know that this is actually me because I have a high prescription and these are not low index. So it's a lot harder to fake them. So anyway, what is the stream today? What is the topic? So yesterday I gave a message for big churches with empty pews. Today the topic of the stream or this message is specifically for people who have more money than sense. So as this whole saga has been going on, I've just been kind of trying to figure out what exactly is going on. I had thought I had some interference with my emails before. I have attacks on my site, just almost pretty continually. I think they were trying to cause connection errors, even though I serve it through Cloudflare. But I thought maybe that's just kind of random. And it was just recently that I realized it probably wasn't just random. It was probably very specifically targeted against me. And it's just taken me a little bit of time to figure out where that came from. So I knew for certain that there were people that were hacking and trying to locate me. Like in February, I thought it had to do with, the sock puppet criminal network that I had ID'd on some of the social media platforms. And it may have been. I mean, I think part of it was. But it was more than that. So there's kind of three things going on. So the first one has to do with um, just my identity as a whole. It's really kind of weird. I get flags on every single financial account my name is on. I have a video of a Gmail account that I created with my name, and it must have gotten flagged and deactivated on Google near immediately because it said this has been used and things that are against our terms of service. I hadn't even used it. I just created it. So um, the things that are being done are actually being done hacking through Google. I mean, there's actually inside collusion with people who work in Google. I mean, this is just very, very clear. Um, I have there's been editing on my Google Photos, dates have been changed, pictures have been inserted. There's pictures that look similar to ones that I've taken, but I know that they're not actually the real ones. And the other thing that was kind of weird is that I noticed that 2 years of my call logs, and this is on the T-Mobile network, had been wiped. And then just recently, just last week, I got a prompt from T-Mobile, which it's on the network, but it's actually Metro PCS that I have the service through, but it came from T-Mobile. It said, click on this link for whatever. Well, I never log in on the link that they say to do that there. But then when I tried to log in online, my security answer had been changed from what it was. So there's those things have been going on. So I think there's an identity thing that has been, I think that's one of the issues. I think when the intense hacking started on August 5th, after I reformatted my phone, I think that they were uh, like just creating accounts that said they were me. But anyway, so that's just identity. That's one thing. Oh, did I say this? Yeah. On my Google Photos, like if you look on maps, you know how your location is tagged in different areas and tell you when you were somebody. According to that, I haven't been in the Houston Kingwood area since December 21st or December 2021, which is not true. So anyway, there's a lot of that going on. So that's an identity issue. I think it also has to do with basically everything that I've written probably in the past decade has been stolen. I've seen it plagiarized, especially the two things I've really noticed. I have the article on my website, How to Find God. That one, they use quite a bit. I mean, they pervert the message, but they use quite a bit. The other one is my devotional hashtag no fear. That one I see re-renditions of all over the place. And the other one was this one has been specifically targeted. It's an essay that was published in an unexpected journal called The Making of a Hero. And it came out in the third edition of an unexpected journal. It's Courage, Strength, and Hope. But it was actually that essay came out of something I wrote for the film and visual arts class in the apologetics program in the fall of 2015. So, yeah, I think that based on some things that I've seen, it looks to me like a ghostwriter for a pretty popular book might have taken, I'm sure mine wasn't the only one, because that was just an essay. Obviously, you can't make an entire book off of one plagiarized essay. So I'm sure other people were plagiarized from as well. But I think that that essay was plagiarized into a book, and I think that's part of the reason, a well-known one, and I think that's part of the reason that particular essay has been tanked. You can see it, and I'm not going to get into it. Like you can see it tanked in just the way the search results are. The excerpts are manipulated so that that first in Google it was what was found was if you search for the title in an unexpected journal, what would come up was an excerpt from a footnote that had a typo in it, and not like the actual intro passage that had the words that were being searched for in it. It was very obviously manipulated. Now I've seen the same sort of manipulation on DuckDuckGo because I've kind of been moving off after all of this, after seeing all the gross manipulation and hacking through Google. So what it looks like to me, I'm doing what I can to move off of Google because I'm kind of screwed in this particular situation because my phone is a Google Pixel. Yeah, it's not good. So don't recommend it. So anyway, that's one of the things that has been targeted. Now, excuse me. If you're interested in that essay, you can read it online. At least right now. I might look at the archive to see if the version that's there is the same as the version that was there in 2018. Although this is the thing, if it ever comes up to prove like who wrote what, I have the original essay that I submitted. So, back in 2015. Anyway, but that essay is in the Courage, Strength, and Hope issue. It was our third issue of an unexpected journal. Now, I'm doing Barnes & Noble because here's the thing. I have a beef with Amazon, and I know that royalties are being skimmed. I actually filed a complaint with the Texas Attorney General's office a year ago, and they did nothing. So anyway, so I know that they are, but I was just looking on Barnes & Noble, and I think that's still going to us. I resigned from the board of an unexpected journal, so I have no login. I don't have. I don't know. I don't have any back-end access to anything. So I think that's still going to the journal. But there's also on Amazon and on Barnes and Noble, there's doppelganger issues that are listed at $18.99 that are actually not journal. They're not. They're going to somebody else. It's a pirated copy, basically. So anyway, one that's $17.99, I think is still is ours, but I couldn't tell you for sure because I can't log in to that. And I know it's rough to tell which one is actually ours versus the other because all the buy buttons and issue information about where you can buy it on the individual pages has been removed in this new improved website redesigned. So I know that makes it difficult. So as of right now, you can read it online. I am planning on, publishing my essays in my own collection because I can do that because the initial contracts for the writer's agreement for the journal, the writers kept the rights. So the journal just had a specific right to publish. So anyway, I can do what I want with it. And so anyway, so there's that. My work's been stolen. I think this is what it seems like to me. I think I might have gotten on this list of like good person to steal from by lazy ghostwriters. That's what I think. I also think that my work might have been used. I'm pretty sure this happened. That my work was used to train an AI model, and which I did not give permission to. It's nothing more than systematized theft, and I did not give permission for my work to be used in that way. So anyway, so there's that. So there's some sort of weird identity thing going on. There's some sort of like stealing of all my work. That's the thing. But the other thing is what's really weird is there's specific targeting a specific post. Now I mentioned this one. This one's obviously been targeted. And I think that, like I said, I think that it was used, a ghostwriter plagiarized part of it in writing a popular book, and this is an effort to cover it up. That's what I think. But there's some other ones that have been specifically targeted. And so these I have highlighted on my website at racetowalk.org on the homepage. So I changed the homepage. I removed, I just took down the shop page because, at this point, it's not really, I don't even know what all they've done to all my accounts. I'm just going to have to go through step by step and figure it out. But these 3 posts, they have really gone after. It really bothers them. So there's 3 of them that I found. There may be some other ones too that I didn't come across. So the first one was an essay that I wrote in December 2017, and it's on Hanukkah and hypocrites, an open letter to Ted Cruz. So here's the thing. I don't know if you're a writer or a creator of some sort. I don't know if you're like this, but sometimes you produce so much, you're like, okay, what did I say in that? What was getting them all hot and bothered about that? So I actually went back and read it. And so when I wrote that post, it was coming up in an election where, what was his name? It was Roy Moore, and what was the guy that was running against him? Doug something. And anyway, if you remember the story, Roy Moore was a proven sexual predator. I mean, there was no question about it. And Ted Cruz was backing him. And this for me was the very end. So what had happened, he goes in, he's taking a stand. He's in 2016, he's saying, this is the thing, this is what I say in that post. I voted for him in the primary in 2016 for president. I voted for Ted Cruz. And when Trump got the nomination, I was like, okay, it's all over, because we managed to pick the one person that could lose against Hillary. That's what I think. And I think I still believe this. I think that the media thought that too, that they gave Trump all this free publicity, millions and millions of dollars worth of publicity over and favoring all the other Republican candidates, because I think they also thought that there's no way he could win. So they wanted him as a candidate so Hillary would have a better chance of winning. And lo and behold, it backfired on him. So anyway, Ted Cruz goes up into that. He's, takes a stand like, I'm not going to back him. He's like, he's a whatever he said, which is true, right? And then he caves, and then he basically becomes like a sniveling bootlicker to and backing. It just was gross. I mean, it's just really gross. But Ted Cruz's, this is the thing. His personality has always been, he's this contrary person that will just stand up and do things. Here's the thing. If you cause ruffles or ripples in places, I actually don't have a problem with that, because I'm kind of like that myself. If I don't agree with something, I will say it rather than just going along and making everybody comfortable. I don't have a problem with somebody being contrary. What I have a problem with is being contrary just to be showboat, right? That's what I have a problem with. And so it goes from being, he presented himself as being principled and standing on things, and when it's just basically he just turned himself into a joke. That's just what happened. And in 2017, he had just, I still remember this. I still remember watching the Kavanaugh confirmations. Here's the thing. When I don't normally pay attention to stuff like this. When I was watching that, I was reading articles about like all of there were things that he lied about, like didn't disclose to Congress before his first appointments, like that he should have disclosed earlier. And yeah, Dianne Feinstein she was playing some games with disclosure. That's true, but it doesn't change the fact that there were all these things. I was like, oh my gosh, this looked to me like all these huge amounts of debts that just suddenly like were gone. They had all these stories about him, about like drinking and like things that, anyway, there was just a lot of things that were really concerning to me that I was like, you got to be kidding me. This is the best we've got. So anyway, so he goes up and, his confirmation hearings, and what is her name? Christine Ford gave her testimony. And I remember watching it, and I could see this was a moment. Ted Cruz had already sold out before, but this was a moment he really sold his soul. I remember watching those confirmation hearings, and they were listening to her testimony, and the camera was on Ted Cruz, and I saw his face, and he knew she was telling the truth. He knew she was telling the truth, and still he turns around and basically just sandbags her and goes along with the confirmation. He knew it. He knew it. He has not, that was the moment he sold the soul. I could see it. So that had just happened. And then the whole thing with Roy Moore comes out, and Ted Cruz is campaigning for him. And that's basically what the article was about. It's like, basically, you've sold out. I will never vote for you again, Ted Cruz. So this is one of the things that they've been targeting. Like they want to, like, they get wrong URLs indexed. So if somebody does, like, for example, if I do a search on, they've done a couple of things to sabotage it in search. They've taken other things, created other pieces of content, random pieces of content with the same title, and then put them out there, and then boosted them in search. That's one of the things that they've done. The second thing they've done is that they've sabotaged the indexing of my site by getting wrong URLs indexed. Now, I've started to combat this a little bit. I've set up redirects from the wrong URL to the correct one. If you see them and come across them, let me know. And it's just like, I literally, I'll get to what I think this whole thing is, but it's just literally ridiculous. And so anyway, so that's what's been going on. So this one's been targeted. The other one that's related to Ted Cruz is this one, Standing Your Ground. And it's really not all about Ted Cruz. I just happened to mention him and the fact that he sold out. And what I said in that, it seemed to me, this is just my opinion. I have no idea. I don't know anybody, or I don't know. I don't know if I know anybody that knows him personally. I probably do, but um, I just have this feeling he was given a word that he was going to be president. And so he thought he needed, like when 2016 didn't turn out the way he thought it would, he thought he needed to kind of work it out in his own way, right? Just maneuver and manipulate to try to bring about this promise that he was given. So here's the thing. I should look this up. You know, the person that was given the Northern Kingdom after Rehoboam precipitated a rebellion after Solomon's death. So the promise of the prophet, I think it was Nathan, he goes and he tells this guy, can't remember what the guy's name was, but he goes and he tells him, he's like, I'm going to give you this kingdom. The Lord said, I'm going to give you this kingdom, the northern 10 tribes. And if you do these things, if you follow my will, then this will remain yours. Well, he didn't. He thought he had to bring about it on his own. He didn't trust in God for the outcome. He thought he had to bring it about in his own way. So he basically, like, the Northern Kingdom, almost from the inception, has been one of chaos and strife and, just like a complete mess. So anyway, that's the thing. Like, when God gives us a word, we still obey his word, right? He gives us a plan, or he gives us a promise, but we still obey his word, even if it seems like doing that isn't going to cause what God has promised us to come about, if that makes sense. So anyway, that's what I was talking about in that video. And it really wasn't even that much. I mean, this was in May of last year. And here's the thing. I did a live stream a couple days ago, and I said, I didn't even realize, because I was like, why is everybody so bothered about what I say about Ted Cruz? And this is the thing. When I write people off, like, I just try to, I just don't want to give you my attention. Top leadership in Texas is an embarrassment. Sometimes, I'll see it and I'll say something, but just generally, I have more productive things to focus my attention on rather than the idiocy that comes out of Texas top brass. I just do. So I don't really pay attention. I didn't realize until literally, I think it was Friday, that Ted Cruz was up for re-election, which I know is totally stupid, but I've had other things. I've had other things on my plate. I'm like, okay, this makes totally sense. So this is why they're getting all hot and bothered, because, okay, there was a poll that came out from the University of Houston. The Texas Tribune did an article on it that said that Ted Cruz was only 2 points ahead of Colin Allred. I don't believe that. I do not believe that. I don't believe that 46% of anybody likes Ted Cruz. I don't believe it. I think that was a rigged poll. I don't believe it. And so, and then there was another article that said that Texas, so I'm assuming that state is going to come and oversee the Harris County elections. Okay, Texas, the state that tried to throw out 2 million votes in the city of Houston, Harris County, in the 2020 election. There better be some Department of Justice people overseeing it too, because they are shady as heck. This is the thing. Houston may be Ted Cruz's home city, but people really hate him. And that's probably why Texas is going to be overseeing the election. That's what I think. Shady. Super shady. So anyway, so there's this. So there's two things about Ted Cruz that have been targeted, which I'm thinking, this is political. This is a violation of my First Amendment rights. Here's the thing. I can have an opinion. I am allowed to have an opinion. I am an American citizen. And if I don't like Ted Cruz, I can say I don't like Ted Cruz. And I am not the only one. Nobody likes Ted Cruz. Nobody likes him. It's not like I'm the only one saying this. It's just like, are you going around targeting everybody else? It says nobody likes Ted Cruz, or is it just me? But we'll get to that. So then the other one, this is where it gets interesting. The first one on elections, faith, and politics. You might think that that has to do um, with Texas politics. It doesn't. It really doesn't so much. It has to do with like local politics and our school board. That's what it has to do with. And so in this long post, I kind of explain how it's kind of at this point, this is 2018. And I was just kind of like, I will never vote straight party again. I'm like, if you are within, this is just kind of the way I thought. If you're within 3 degrees of Greg Abbott, you're sus to me. And I'm going to have to really know you and know that you aren't shady and corrupt for you to get my vote. If you have just anywhere in his sphere, that's just where I'm at, like right now. And but it's just a long thing. I tell the story about what happened with with them hiring the superintendent in 2016, and it's all local. It's all local, and I'm thinking, why would anybody care if I mean, other than local people, specifically the people on, that were involved in the election and on the Humble IC school board that I was speaking out against, who would care? Who would care? No one would care. I don't think. I mean, why? I can understand Ted Cruz. I can understand that, but that one is weird. So here's something I post on Twitter all the time. The tell's always in the response. The tell is always in the response. You can always tell, maybe not always, but usually you can tell when there's something by how people respond or what they react to. So I mentioned, the editing of the photos. There are photos of my daughter's 5th grade graduation that I know that I did not take. But I know that I've seen them before and I know who took them. So that tells me that there's some complicity there with the person whose photos they are. There's also edited photos about, especially beach retreat, and just some of the second related photos. I'm thinking. So I knew like one little pool of conspiracy for one area, but for this over here, one pool was just kind of brought in to target one specific area of my, what I do. But this other pool over here is like this little conclave of corruption. And just based on some of the things that I'm seeing and the things that are being inserted into my posts, I'm thinking, or into my photos, I'm thinking, I probably know more people that are involved in this. And obviously, there's got to be local people that are probably Second Baptist members that are part of whatever this is. And here's the thing, like I talked about before about the size of Second Baptist. I don't even know the size of it now. And here's the thing about like big churches. A lot of times, in a church like that, this isn't true of everywhere. But, in Southern Baptist circles, it's still, being a church member is still a cultural positive, right? And so some people just go because they, they have good networking, or get referrals or whatever, or they just want to say it's this association, it's this credibility by association, because it's such a, not only just because it is such a big church and so many people know it, but also you could say, yeah, I go there, and even people I know, personally, unless they were in children's ministry or my Bible study, I mean, a lot of times I would not even see him for like 3, 4 months at a time unless we just happened to cross paths. And so it's easier to say, yeah, I go there. And, how would somebody know? They wouldn't. I mean, you could not, they could just be saying, oh, yeah, I just go to the worship service. It's not like they check attendance and, in a worship service, it's, 2,500 people or 4,000 or whatever it is. How are you going to know? You don't know. So a lot of times it can be covered. And this isn't a secret. I've mentioned this in some of my other Bible studies that our children's, we would have safe sanctuary training for the children's ministry every year. And, our children's instructor said that, they go through training with law enforcement. And she said that churches are the number one target for predators. And it's not only for kids, it's also for adults because there's this built-in trust, right? You think that these people believe the same as you, have the same values. It's just this automatic authority and automatic trust tie that may not be warranted. And so I already know, like, this is what I read at one point. This may not be true still, but at one point, Steve Hotz, or whatever the guy's name, the guy that was recorded on, there was a voice recording of him calling like Patrick or Abbott during 2020, the George Floyd riots, telling them that the Texas guard better like shoot him if they got out of line. You remember that? Yeah. Well, from what I read, he's a member of Second. There's also a really sleazy, like one of the dirtiest political consultants, like in the state of Texas, in Houston. Like one of the members is a member of Second Baptist, from what I read. It's not like I know them personally. This is just what I read. So this connection between these really sleazy political operators and the school district, if y'all remember in 2017, when that supporters pack that was created for the incumbents that Chris Parker was the treasurer for, that she actually got fined for, I don't know, they can't do math. I don't know what it was, but she got a fine from the Texas Ethics Commission over it. That one, from what I remember, they actually had some sort of consult with this same shady political officers. Like, what do you need this for in a school board election? I mean, keep in mind, it had like at that year they had 115,000 registered voters, but they keep the election in like some off time, and they actually, by the locations, they depress turnout there that way too. But that election, they had 5,000 people vote, and that was the most they'd ever had ever. The highest that they had before that was 3,000. What kind of I mean, there was so much dark money that came into that election. It was ridiculous. So anyway, so there are these connections, right? These local connections with the school board in 2016 when we were protesting against their selection of a superintendent, that one of the board members even said to me, he described her as radioactive. I mean, this is how her friends describe her. Another person that says she likes her described her as radioactive. That tanked the last district she was in. We were protesting that. We were told by Lopez and Sitton that they had connections with Austin. Austin, basically under the fiefdom of Greg Abbott right now, that is trying to destroy public education. And Abbott, who was trying to push vouchers which James Lennon made that the condition of his support of the Kingwood Tea Party. Bob Rehak is a story that James Lennon yelled at him for 10 minutes because Bob didn't support vouchers. He's a Republican that didn't support vouchers. So anyway, So there's all this. So it is a local school board, but there's tentacles that are a little bit broader. And what it seems to me is like these little nucleuses of corruption. That's what it looks like to me. That's what it looked like to me to then. And now that I'm seeing the attacks on my site, and especially the particular things that have been attacked, which is just like really who would care? It's a blog post from 2018. Who cares about it? It's so ridiculous. So what's been going on this is not only have URLs have been indexed, but I have podcast episodes, or basically like an audio version of the post, not on every single post I have, but on that one I do. And sometimes this is the thing, I don't have access to my Amazon account now. There have been twice it's been hacked. One time I could tell they had deleted an MP3 off of AWS where I store it. Then last week there was some sort of I was opening up Kindle and there was some sort of hack there where it was prompting a login, and I was going through it. I'm like, crap, they're trying to get access to my Amazon account so they can get access to AWS. So I called customer service and I told her what had happened. And so she said, okay, that's not normal. We have a special team that looks into this. We'll have them contact you. I changed the email address that was on my account. So I would get it, because there's some of my domain emails are messed up too. And so then I just discovered that they responded to me with this. This is an email from AWS. Now note that the reply is to no reply. Also note that there's absolutely no name on this. So there's no accountability whatsoever. And they said, we didn't see that there was any purchases or anything. So that's not what I said. I said specifically that the target is my AWS account. So here's the thing. I cannot log into my AWS account. I have the password, but then it goes to a prompt where you have to have a security key on a USB device, which I did not set up. So I can't log in. So here's the thing. They can say, okay, it's still here. But the thing with AWS is you can set up permissions for these files. So a file can be there, but if they turn off the permission for it, then you can't access it. So this is the thing. They can mess around with that. They can mess around like, oh, no, it's not gone. It's still there. But since they have control over it and I don't, that's what they can do. That's what they can do. So here's the thing. All of this, which is just the dumbest. I mean, it's just so ridiculous that anybody is spending time on this. It's just utterly ridiculous. But what I'm doing is I haven't gotten it done because this is the thing. I have like a decade worth of content on there. And so anyway, I'm starting to transfer the MP3s to a different account. I use PowerPress, which is as a plugin for hosting. And with that, you just, you're managing the podcast through WordPress and with the PowerPress plugin. And you can change the media file, the location, where it is, and then that will update with the different podcast directories. So that's what I'm working on. I haven't got them all done, but I am that one on election, faith, and parties. That was the first one that I uploaded in Switch. So that MP3 is one that you should be able to access without any interference. The only thing is, I'm gonna have to send an email to Blueberry. That's the publisher of that plugin. Because I know, so there was some delay in that, like in between, like serving up the file and yeah. So that's kind of another in between things. But anyway, so what I'm looking at here looks to me like those particular ones are politically motivated, and the fact that that won on election faith and parties is up there tells me that there's some personal agendas in there too. And so this is a topic of my stream to people who, a message for people who have more money than sense. So I've had a few things. Well, these are big businesses, and like how could this be going? There's always things that should happen, but people are corruptible. And if you have one little cog, one little person in this big behemoth of a business, and they get paid off to basically jerk things around, harass something, give somebody access, how likely is it that that's going to be found if the management is inefficient? Because this is what I've noticed. Like, I even going into Metro PCS, I said my device has been hacked. I didn't even, there was no process. There was no, oh, well, this is what you should do. There's no accountability. They're just collecting money, and there's no, it's like, you owe us money. We are going to keep taking it, but we don't owe you anything in exchange for that. We'll give you what we want to give you. And if somebody happens to screw you over or exploit you, or if something happens, basically you're on your own. This is the attitude of these big companies. Like I've been saying, I have so much evidence of back end editing, of views and engagement. I mean, you can see this. Like if you watch any of my stuff, just try this. Try subscribing and see if it sticks. So take a screen. If you're subscribed and you turn on notifications, like if you go to YouTube, take a screenshot of it. Obviously, you'll have a date on it that you're described. Then subscribe. Then go back later on and see if you're still subscribed and have notifications on, or if you liked it, if it's still stuck, or especially if you made a comment and it's still stuck. It's still there because it's getting wiped. This is the thing. They're so dumb. They have gone over the top in the things that they're editing. It's like views, it just doesn't even make sense. The way they're editing things, and it doesn't even make sense. YouTube says that that's not possible. Obviously it is, because I'm seeing it happen. So either YouTube is complicit or they're incompetent. Those are the two options. Because if you weren't complicit and if you weren't incompetent, you would say, oh yeah, how did this happen? And you would figure it out and find out who the perpetrators are. They do it all the time. So it's not like, if you just observing that you couldn't see it. Okay. So here's the thing. It's like, we are just being treated like we're just, as consumers, like we're just these little things to suck from and to use. It's like the ethics of the Matrix. I wrote this essay. We are like the people in the pods in the Matrix that they're just drawing from, that they don't think they owe anything to. So that particular essay, again, you can't tell what issue it's in, but that is in a science fiction issue that came out in 2020. This is the same thing. I'm posting on Barnes & Noble. As far as I know, this one is the authentic listing. There's another one up for $18.99 that's doppelganger copy that comes up first. All of those come up first. Ours, not ours, the journals. I'm not affiliated anymore. But anyway, okay, I'm giving an update on my saga. So anyway, but that's basically what it is. There are these huge corporations that don't think that they owe anything in exchange for the money that they're receiving. So if you're allowing these things to happen and you do nothing about it, you're complicit. That's my opinion. But I'm not an attorney, and I don't pretend to be one on Twitter either. So here's the thing. I just as a reminder. So back in the early 20th century, Teddy Roosevelt was it the 20th century? Yeah, Teddy Roosevelt was he was a president. He's known as a trust buster. And this is a really great article on ushistory.org about Teddy Roosevelt. And as I was reading it, I was like, this is exactly the same situation right now that we're in. It's like these big trusts, are, that's what they called them, at the time, these big companies that were exploiting workers, that were basically stealing wages, that were, taking advantage of consumers. And he saw that there was a revolution coming if those things didn't change. And so he initiated a change. And that's where our laws come from that don't allow for monopolies. We are so far beyond that now. It is so much worse than when Teddy Roosevelt was president. It's unbelievable. If you go and read The Iron Heel by Jack London, you can see this was before those changes. You could see that he was predicting. He saw the same thing that Teddy Roosevelt did, but he was writing about it in fiction. He's like, there's going to be a revolution. This injustice cannot stand. And so we need to, we need to do something about it. Jack London was more of a revolutionary. Teddy Roosevelt was a reformer. He got the laws changed so that these big corporations could not take advantage of the everyday person. And this is the thing, those laws are still on the books. It's like, we don't need new laws. We just need the existing ones to be followed. And I think part of it is that our legislators are so unaware, for the most part, of how things are working. They're like 30 years behind the curve as far as what's really going on. And so there's got to be a change. There's got to be a change. And you need to, like right now, really, for the most part, most legislators are probably bought and paid for by big money. That's the truth. But if people are smart, and I'm talking about people with more money than sense, if people are smart, they'll look back in history and see that this injustice has never stood. It's never stood. And so you can either go with justice, go with the tide of justice, or justice will still come and it's going to bowl you over. This is what will happen. So anyway, I am going to, have I been going that long? I'm going to be wrapping this up, but this is just a message for the people that are bankrolling the attacks against me, because this is probably funded by some PAC and somebody's giving the money. This is what you're doing. The fact that you think that those articles of mine can swing an election one way or the other just because I say I don't like Ted Cruz, you're dumb. You're really, really dumb. And what you're really doing is you're just funding somebody's personal agenda that got butthurt because I was fact checking and footnoting him. That is a reality. Do I have an impact on this election? I'm one person with an opinion. Spending all this money and all this time and all this focus to try to tank me and sabotage me. You're idiots. You are complete and total idiots if you think that makes any difference. It doesn't. It just makes you co-conspirators. It makes you criminals. You are party to a crime. So my suggestion for you is quit being led around by the nose by some like thin-skinned pansy that gets offended because they lie all the time and can't stand up to the truth. They're blowing smoke at you about like what changes, what's going to have an impact and what doesn't. It doesn't. Here's the thing. You picked a bad candidate. What you should have been doing is telling Ted Cruz, nobody likes you and we're not going to put this money behind you. So, sorry, but your bad investment, and moved on to somebody else. That's what you should have done. Where you're at now, I'm sorry, you picked a bad candidate. So you're just going to have to deal with it. But if you continue to come after me, you're going down. You will be exposed and it's not going to be pleasant. And here's the thing, even if the law does not catch up to you, I'm sure you're people that just pretend like you're all Christian. Sure, you sit in church every year, every week. Go and read Amos chapter 5. That is a judgment about people who exploit others. And that judgment is a specific word for you. It is a specific word for you. And not only is it specifically for you, but it is for your descendants. As much as you try to like create some uproar over Boogeyman CRT, generational iniquity is an actual thing. It's a flip side of the atonement. And what you are doing right now will cause a curse. It will come on your generations. So what I would do if I were you is I would repent of that. Cut your ties with these criminals and manipulators and go get right with God. That is what I would do if I were you. Now, here is a problem. Here's a problem. When you do these things, like when you oppress the poor, when you exploit workers, when you shut off your avenue to God. So you can go and you can make some donations, an offering of atonement, and confess your sins to God, and then ask the people that that you're donating to pray for you. And here's the other thing. Like I said, I know how this ends. I know how it ends. I had the word from God about it. And so, am I tired of this garbage? I am, because I have other more productive things to do than deal with a bunch of manipulators and like, I don't even know. It's just hard for me to even have measured words about it because people are ridiculous. But here's another word from God I got about this. Keith Lopez, you're going to be turning them all in. You're going to be outlining the whole thing. I got a word from God about that. Also had a dream about it. And you can go and ask Brian and Andy Culver about my dreams and my prayers. I'm sure you know him. I'm sure you know him. So it's going to happen. One or the other. Believe it.